If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, broadcasting live every Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. Central from Panama City Beach, Florida, home of the world's most beautiful beaches. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining me on my weekly broadcast. Every week, I'll feature some of the best instructors, coaches, authors, and entrepreneurs in the golf business today. I begin with a great discussion on Coach's Corner, followed by an insightful interview with my special guest. So let's get started by introducing tonight's Coach's Corner panel. All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and I want to thank you for joining me for another show this Thursday evening. We are, as mentioned all the time, we're live from 6 to 8 p.m. Central here on the blogtalkradio.com network. And for those of you that aren't able to tune in during the live broadcast, of course, you can pick it up a little bit later on, and you can hear the recorded version. All right, I want to get things started here pretty quick. I'm going to be bringing out in just a moment the Coach's Corner panel. We're going to start off with that. And then a little bit later on, my good friend Joshua Jacobs, the CEO of TGA Premier Sports, is going to be joining me on the second half, and we're going to talk a little bit about junior golf. But let me remind everybody, of course, Golf Talk Live is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing top quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And, of course, Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, offering insightful reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top PGA and LPGA teach professionals, all designed to help improve your game from tee to green. So subscribe today at golftipsmag.com. And just a quick program note, next week, of course, is Thanksgiving, and there will not be a show next Thursday evening. And actually next Tuesday, which I normally have the Women of Golf show, we won't be doing that. So next week there will be no shows, and then we'll be starting back up with the Women of Golf on December 1st, and then the 3rd for Golf Talk Live. So we're going to take a week break to observe Thanksgiving and get together with family and friends. So no shows for that week. All right, I'm going to bring out the panel here. First up, of course, is John Decker. He's a PGA instructor, motivational speaker. He's also a senior editor and top 25 instructor with Golf Tips Magazine. He was the 2015 Southern Ohio Teacher of the Year. He was also the prior head instructor at the Grand Cypress Academy of Golf, where he worked under top 100 instructors Fred Griffin and the late Phil Rogers. And he's also an author of Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game, which, of course, includes a Bible study. Also joining on the panel tonight is Peter Agazarian. He's an owner and director of performance for Northeast Performance Institute, owner and president of Northeast Golf Performance. He was the 2017 Northeastern New York PGA Player Development Award recipient, and he's also a TrackMan Master and Proponent Group member. Also rounding out the panel is Pete Buchanan, founder and director of instruction and owner of Plain Simple Golf LLC, which, of course, houses the Plain Simple Golf Circuit and Simple Swing Repeater Training Brace. And Pete's been teaching this great game for 30-plus years. So, guys, welcome to Coach's Corner panel.
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Ted.
I appreciate a few flubs there in the introduction. Tied up my tongue a little bit, but I managed to get through it. You guys got a lot of accolades, so it's tough to get through it some weeks, especially with three of you. And just a quick, one other quick thing I just want to mention before we get started, guys, is supposed to be joining us tonight was Clint Wright. Unfortunately, he had to bow out last minute, and he will be joining us on his regular scheduled date next month, but he just wanted to send his backs. All right, so I'm going to start with John, and I'm going to go actually with the order that I introduced you through this. And we got an interesting discussion tonight, and there's a couple of different things that we're going to cover. But I want to just, John, before I start, just tell a little bit about, sort of set the groundwork, if you will, for tonight's discussion. Earlier this week, Cindy and I interviewed a young lady. Her name was Anna Belix. She's the Player of the Year and number one player of the Volvic race for the card. She's also a winner on the Symetra Tour. In fact, she just won her first event this year, the 2020 Carolina Golf Classic. She recently said she plays by the numbers. In other words, stats help define her game. So what I'm going to ask each of you is, are there positives and or negatives to playing that way? Somebody that relies on the stats and numbers, and somebody that says that kind of defines her game. What are some of the positives and negatives, do you think, or are there any?
Well, first of all, Ted, thank you for having me on the show. And Peter and Pete, I look forward to being on with you as well. I think that when it comes to the numbers, I think that, in my opinion, the numbers are more important while you're teaching and while you're looking at your progress. I mean, I'm very big into measurements and whether it's your handicap, whether it's your greens and regulation, fairways hit, whatever it is that we identify that you need to work on or your goal as a student. I think from a lesson standpoint, that is very, very helpful. I do not recommend that the average golfer focus on these things during their round of golf. For example, don't be on the fifth hole and look back and say, wow, I've only hit one green in regulation, or I haven't hit any fairways, because, that's something that you should do after the round. And so I try to focus, I want all my students, and I think we will all agree, I think everyone on the panel, that you're going to do much better hitting a shot if you're focusing on the shot or your task at hand than if you're focusing on your stats. So I understand her comment. But if she's focusing on that during the round, in my opinion, that's probably not the best use of her time. But who am I to say that, tell anyone, at that level, if it works for her, that's fine. I think for the average golfer, that is detrimental. But I do believe that when your round is over, whatever stats and measurements that you're observing and really focusing on, for me, I always believe in fairways, greens and regulation, putts, up and down percentage, bunker, up and down percentage. Those are the big ones I look at. And then you can start getting into, if you really want to break it down into carry distance and driving distance and all those things, that's where you get into the launch monitor work and stuff. So stats are important. Ultimately, though, the only stat that really matters is your score. And so if it helps you to shoot a lower score, I think it's great. But for the average golfer, focus on the shot at hand and look for the stats after the round.
Great point. And I think you're right. I think it depends on the individual player. Peter, I'm going to Peter Agazarian first. I think really what she was really trying to define here was not so much that she was getting caught up in the numbers, but she's a very analytical person. So for her, as an example, if she typically two putts on most greens at worst and suddenly finds herself maybe three putting a couple of greens, she knows based on her memory of stats that she has put together over her season that there's an issue here. Same thing with her chipping and pitching in different areas of her game. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with what John said? Or, again, this isn't something that's necessarily going to be applicable to every golfer, and I don't want to put everybody in the same box. But for her, it seems to work. In fact, she studied statistics when she was in school. So this is something that was, sort of ingrained in her psyche, if you will. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I definitely think every golfer is different, especially at that level, and that's what she identifies with, and that's what helps her perform well, and that's what, she should embrace for her particular background, her education, her mindset. But it sounds like from what you're saying, Ted, and I agree, with a lot of what Jonathan's saying, but it sounds like to me that she's just using it as a guide to, give attention where it needs to be given for a game. If something needs development, then like you're saying, maybe the putts are off, maybe she needs to work on her putting. But if it helps her guide her decision making in round, that level, the choices you make on the golf course dictate the ability to execute shot X or Y. I mean, she can make a choice, or anybody can make a choice while they're on the golf course that forces them to execute the chosen technique so perfectly to execute the chosen shot that it becomes unrealistic to actually execute at that level. So if she's using the stats to help her make more effective choices for herself that are in line with, her current ability and the current execution based on the stats, then, that's something that she's embraced, and clearly it's helping her perform better and train better and prepare better. And, like I said earlier, at that level, making choices on the golf course that are confident and in line with how you're executing is the most important piece. So for someone like her, someone that has that kind of analytical background, that little analytical mindset, I'm always there to embrace that, provide the tools necessary, and then, help them understand how they can work within that framework better and more effectively.
Also, some great points, Peter. Thank you. Pete, let me just, and I want to get your thoughts on this as well. And the reason why I'm sort of going to all three for this is because, again, obviously we all have different opinions in that. But so far, John and Peter have raised some very interesting points, some similarities, but also some differences as well. But let me just bring somebody else into this for a second. And, when you think of certain players like Jack Nicklaus and Annika Sorenstam as an example, they were very analytical players. Now, were they going over how many greens and regulations or how many putts? Not necessarily, but they were certainly framing it in a different way. And I'll give you an example. Jack Nicklaus quite often said certain holes did not fit his eye. So when he stepped up to a hole, of course, his natural ball flight was a fade. If it didn't, if he was not able to execute the shots that typically, then he would not spend a lot of time on that hole, trying to force a birdie or force an eagle on a longer hole. He'd be happy just to get out of there with a par until he got to the next hole that sort of fit his eye. So I think really what she's saying is not so much is that she's going through all the stats, for every shot, but she's conscious of those stats. And as both of them pointed out, I want to get your thoughts on that as well. What do you think of what she's essentially saying is those stats, those numbers help her make informed decisions while she's on the golf course. And as I mentioned in bringing her on board, if you will, that she just won the 2020 Carolina Golf Classic, which was just a couple of weeks ago, and it was her first pro event. What are your thoughts, Pete?
Well, I totally agree with what she's doing. I just went through an exercise today where, I'm one of the assistant coaches for the University of Missouri women's team, and we had Zoom meetings. So I had the Zoom meeting, and the coaches were with the players, but we went over their stats for the fall season. And it's really, really unique to see how those stats break down their game to where their strengths and weaknesses are and the types of shots and things that they have to work on. For example, from 120 to 100 to 120, 120, 150, 150, 170 yards. What are their percentages of greens hits with those lengths? And so the stats are very detailed, and they really open up a really good picture to where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, and also how they match up against, the rest of the conference that they're playing in, because they all have the same stats they're putting out there. It's really a cool thing for them to use, and really neat for us to see how we can look at those individual stats from what they're doing on their overall game, and then put forth a practice plan to get them to improve the areas where they're not as strong, and continue to improve the ones that they are. So, yeah, I think it's a great tool for them to use, and definitely looking at those stats and embracing what they tell them, but then most importantly being able to go out and practice to take those areas that need some assistance and really work on them to improve their overall score. So, yeah, I think that's, to me, that's exactly what she's using it for. And, more power to her. It's working, obviously, since she won a tournament. So, I think the average golfer, maybe doesn't have to get as detailed, but I still think keeping a track of some of the things that happen during the round can be very useful for them moving forward.
Also some great points as well. And I have to say this, and somebody else that I probably should have added in there is Tiger Woods. And again, I'm not suggesting that they're all going by the numbers, but they're all very analytical in their approach. And if you look at the overall performance of the three, top professionals in their game, Tiger, Jack, and Annika, that analytical approach really put them at a level unlike anybody else. Now, there's obviously a lot of other folks that have won out on the PGA and LPGA Tour. However, their sort of a different approach to it put them, as I said, up to a different level. And it's going to be interesting to see if Anna is going to be one of those players. Is she going to be able to use those stats and that information to elevate her game and become a real champion, or is she going to be somebody that's might win a few events here and there? It'd be interesting to see. And if you look at and compare them to the other players out on tour, we other than Tiger, we really haven't seen anybody like Jack, and we really haven't seen anybody like Annika, out on the women's tour. So there is something to that style of play. It obviously serves them very well. And again, it's not for everybody, but it's going to be interesting to see if this young lady is going to follow suit and end up rising to the top as the others have. John, I'm going to come back to you, and we're going to talk a little bit about Anna a little bit more. She's originally from Slovenia, resides in actually North Carolina right now. But this is a different part. She was actually a member of their national golf team in Slovenia. Other players from Korea, Sweden, Spain, Italy, and many other countries also played on a national golf team. Many of those players went on to win professional events. Do you think the U.S. would benefit from creating a similar national golf program here? And if yes, why? And if not, why not? Or if no, why not? Excuse me. That was for John, sorry. Oh, John, I think John's, I'm sorry. John, my apologies, John, you got dropped.
Can you hear me?
John, you back? Yeah, I can now. Sorry, you were dropped. Did you hear the question? Or
I heard the question. I was talking. I didn't know that. I could hear you fine.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
Okay. It's interesting because with the Ryder Cup, one of the things they've always said is that the Europeans, they gel together because these guys would tours not as nice as the PGA Tour, and so they would drive around together and they would stay in the same hotels and they would stay in the same houses, and they had this camaraderie that kind of lent itself to team atmosphere. And I think that's I love that about the European game, and the European Tour I think is very fun to watch. I really enjoy watching European Tour players. I don't think it's conducive in the United States because of the size of the United States. I think that I would find it hard to see someone from Florida and California and all the different parts. All the great players come from all different parts of the country. I don't know if it would do as well. And now that we have the AJGA and all the tours that the U.S. kids tours, and then the AJGA and then they go up to college. I think college is the first time that really most young Americans get that team atmosphere. I'm not saying there's anything that is wrong with that. I definitely think, in my opinion, the thing that's coming up now is, with the Olympics and having golf in the Olympics, I think is fantastic. I would love to see it get to where the Olympics in golf does not use the professionals and lets the amateurs play, and I think that would kind of lend in what you're talking about. But I understand why when they brought Olympic golf on, they wanted to to get it going, and so bringing the PGA Tour players in, I can see why they do that. But after a while, that's going to lose its luster, I think, because if Tiger does it, that's great, but it's going to lose its luster because it's just going to end up being another event that I don't need to watch the Olympics to watch these guys play against each other when I can watch them play on the PGA Tour. So in my opinion, that would be great to see for amateur golf, and I think that would be beneficial. But I don't ever see it being as predominant as it is in other countries in the United States. That's just my opinion. I may be wrong on that, but I think that I think there's enough outlets out there right now with the tours where they're getting that kind of exposure, and they're groomed at such a young age now that most families are going to go that route.
Some interesting points, and I agree with it in part. But Peter, I wonder though if having a national golf team would benefit maybe more so some of those that typically don't have the same accessibility in golf that others do. Giving junior players who typically can't play an opportunity. One of the interesting things with speaking with especially some of the young ladies off of the Symetra Tour who have gone through, and that's why I mentioned some of the other countries, who have played on a national golf team, it's essentially where they got their start in some sort of a higher caliber, if you will. Now, I know there's a lot of great junior programs, as John pointed out, and a lot of different programs in the U.S., but what do you think about having a national golf team or teams, even if you were to split it up, here in the U.S.? Do you think it would be conducive to golf in general? Or as John suggested, maybe because we have a lot of other options already that it may not necessarily be necessary. But I think from an accessibility standpoint, it might work. What do you think?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think not only should we have a national team, I think we should have state teams that are competitive on a regular basis within their region and then nationally, and then that can feed into, potentially a United States national amateur team and maybe a professional team. I mean, there's really within the structure that is used internationally, the United States is really the only country not to really embrace that. I mean, our neighbors in Canada and Mexico both do it. Mm-hmm. The Canadian team's been very successful. The Europeans do it at every level. They have, varying levels of national team, whether it be youth or adult or amateur, professional, and different levels within that. I mean, they fully embrace it, and they feel as though they're providing a higher level of a more inclusive, competition. Mm. So why not? Why not? I mean, I think everything as John mentioning is fantastic, but really once they're, 18, they get into college, and even in the United States, if they don't have a well-guided development program, they get even lost a little bit in college. I mean, I see it especially in New England where, even Division I in the Northeast, in the summer, if they don't have a very specific coach, they get lost in jobs and internships, and their game becomes a little bit of a secondary piece until about August. And then they get serious again and work on their game for 3 weeks, and then they get it back in shape. But if they had the ability to be within a team and train with other like-minded people within their state, or if they happen to be performing at a really high level at the national level, it could really change the culture. And we do that. I mean, we have programming for every level that they work with like-minded people, and they train together. If they're not friends already, they become friends. And they don't have to be competitive. They're, these are recreational players that all are like-minded in the sense that they want to improve. And they end up learning a ton from each other just as much as the competitive players can learn from each other in a state team environment, a region, even if it's regionally within a state. Like when I was in Massachusetts, every region had their own allied association. So I was in the Berkshires, which was very western rural Massachusetts, and they had a Berkshire allied association. I know there was near the Connecticut River Valley, there was the Pioneer Valley Association. Around Worcester, they had the Worcester Golf Association. You know, they had a North Shore Golf Allied Association. They had a Greater Boston. They had a South Shore, and they had a Cape. So here's a very small state relative to the others in the Union that has 6 allied associations within the state that all compete very locally, and then they have teams that compete against each other on a state sense. And it's very well developed. I mean, the Berkshire Allied Association now is 86 years old. It's not like it's a new thing. And I think at some point they embraced what other countries were doing, and they've kept it going. So, I mean, it's a long-winded answer of absolutely, and the more the merrier.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that, Peter. And Pete, you know, I think one of the reasons why I do agree with that is I look at so many other sports, and you know, certainly we have our collegiate golf, and not to take away from that, but I really like the idea of maybe you know, a state by state, having state representation, playing with, you know, even regional within the states, and then you sort of the cream rises to the top, excuse me, and then, you know, maybe you could even somehow, again, you know, as John pointed out earlier with the Olympics, you know, sort of take the best of the best from those various states, and then now they have an opportunity to make it to the national team, which would maybe represent in the Olympics or something. What do you think on this? Do you agree, you know, more with John's idea that there's so much product out there right now that a national golf team or national teams, if you will, may not necessarily be something that would be conducive here in the United States? Or do you lean a little bit more with Peter's way of thinking, and that is, you know, the more the merrier, and let's maybe even bring it to a regional or even a state level as well? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm leaning a little bit more towards what Peter was talking about. You know, when I grew up, we had the Kansas Amateur Junior Golf Association, and we had, you know, every club had their own team, and we traveled around in the summertime and played all the other teams. It was a great way to do it. And then they had a couple of individual teams put together in there where you had 2 boys, 2 girls that played on a team together, and whoever won the state got to go play in a national tournament. So, yeah, things like that were great, great way to, as you said, players to bond together, hang out with each other, travel. So, yeah, I definitely think it's something we should do, whether it's, you know, statewide, regional-wide, Midwest, Northeast, you know, whatever you want to do, and, you know, definitely then have a national deal at the end. But, you know, as you said, all the other sports do it. I don't know why we couldn't, you know, put the same thing together. And as Peter was talking about, why not do it at all different levels? I mean, get a lot of people involved. Mm-hmm. I think it would be great to have all the different levels play, so, you know, you're not singled out that, you know, only the best players from your state can do it. Well, let's break it down into categories, and then, you know, everybody in that sort of handicap range gets an opportunity to do it. So, yeah, I think it's a great idea. I definitely like to see something like that happen. I think it would be beneficial to everybody.
Well, and you know, I look at it. Right? No, that's great, Pete. Thanks. You know, the way I look at it is this, and I agree with a little of everything. I mean, I understand that, you know, the pros and cons to any, you know, of our discussion, but the way I look at it is, you know, I equate, you know, being from the North, of course, hockey was a big thing, and we had a variety of different levels. Obviously, you had, you know, a higher caliber hockey team with what we call rep hockey, and then you had what you would call your house leagues, which was, you know, for those that maybe weren't quite as good, but maybe didn't have the resources to get in, and they could get in at more of an entry level. So, you know, and I know that there's a lot of great programs out there, John, but the reason I bring this up is because, you know, as we all know, golf is becoming more and more a global game. In fact, it's a global game now. And we've seen, as an example, particularly on the LPGA, there's been sort of a domination of sorts by international players. And I'm wondering, is it sort of a two-part question? Is it because more international players are simply just getting access to the U.S. Golf market? Or is it because nationally they are taking a more direct route through their programs which is helping to create maybe a higher caliber or higher level of player. What about that perspective? What do you think, John?
Well, living in Florida, when I was teaching down at Grand Cypress, I mean, all of the elite players from all over the world. The thing about it is, if you're really elite and you're in Korea, or you're in China, or you're in some of these other countries around the world, the government, they're going to promote you. They're going to push you to the top. They're going to get you the best coaches, whether the coaches come to you or whether they have them come to the United States. And I would see every year, I would see between 50 and 100 people from different parts of the world who were between the ages of 13 and 20 come to train at Grand Cypress during the winter months. And they were all right. Good, and they were all elite. And many of them I see on television now, and many of them I never saw again. But they were all really good. So in a lot of those countries, they'll take 100 juniors, and they'll say, those three right there, those are our best ones, and we're going to do everything we can. They may not be looking to grow the game like I'm looking to grow the game as a PGA golf professional, where we're trying to get everyone involved. They're looking for people that are going to win the Masters and win Olympic medals and that kind. So that when you're looking at different countries, you got to realize that's kind of a lot of their, I guess, their mental approach to what they're trying to do for the game of golf. Is they want to produce champions. And in the United States, we want to produce champions as well. But I look at the PGA of America. We have the Junior League. I mean, the Junior League is a great way for kids to get started. We have so many great ways that young people can get into the game. And then you have the U.S. Kids Tour, and you have the AJGA. And the reason I was a little bit hesitant on what you were saying is because I know what college coaches are looking for. They're looking for your AJGA rankings. And if you go to a 15 or 16-year-old kid and say, well, you can go and play with this, this group, and you can go travel around, the college coaches, that's not going to catch their attention, because they want to see you playing individually, and they want to see how you're doing. And most kids who are really good want to play college golf. Not all of them, but most of them do. So that was why I was leaning towards that. Now, as far as the state levels goes, I have a team here in Ohio that I've worked with for years, and they won the state 3 years in a row, the women's team. And now they've competed in Pinehurst. Now they have it. So if you're the state champion from Ohio, you go to Pinehurst and you play the state champions from all the different states. And so I think that what you're talking about is a part of that. I think that from the high school levels and the college levels, you get that. I just think that in the United States that I see the way kids train and the way kids want, and it's about, golf is ultimately an individual sport. And so that's what the college recruiters are looking for. And that's really what I see. If you're looking to grow the game at the grassroots level and just get people involved, then I think what you're talking about is a great idea. But I think there's a lot of programs out there that can do that without creating something new. That's just, again, my personal opinion.
Yeah, there's really, Peter, I think, as I mentioned, there's on both sides, I think there's some great arguments for both, because there are a lot of great programs here in the United States. Obviously, this is why so many players from all over the world want to come to the U.S. and compete on that higher level. That's why so many of them want to get into, particularly Division I, colleges, and get on those golf teams, because they're going to be competing with some of the best of the best. So I see it that. But what's interesting, just going back to my last thought here, and that was about seeing what's going on with the LPGA, and obviously I'm including the Symetra and some of the other lower tiered women's tours. You see a big surgence of international players, and particularly winners on that, as opposed to some of the U.S. players. But you don't see that same sort of dominance is not as apparent on the men's tour. Do you think there's a reason? Why do we don't see as much dominance from international players on the men's tour as we do in the ladies' tours? Why do you think that might be? Any thoughts on there, Peter?
Excuse me. Honestly, that just the way the game is trained in the United States is just much different than the rest of the rest of the world. I mean, it in my opinion, is a completely broken system that is based all on what John just said. Your AJGA ranking is the most important thing. You look at the rest of the world, and I think the men's game is catching up as well as being very globally coached and developed very differently. Look at our neighbors to the north. You're from Canada. They've been using the long-term development model that was derived originally by the Russians for their Olympic teams during Soviet, when it was during when it was the USSR. During that period of time, they defected to Canada. They brought the system with them. They've been using that for their hockey teams for a very long time. Then they developed, Henry Button and a group of golf people started instilling that in the national golf team. They've been using that for a long time. It's just in the past 2 years that the PGA has embraced that long-term development model that was established a very long time ago by the Russians to employ into golf. So it's, in my opinion, a completely broken system that is based on the end result, performance only, and focuses nothing on long-term development and the well-being of the person. So I see too many people, especially at the college ranks, that hate golf. They see it as a job. They can't wait for it to be over. And you have 99.99% of them that are not going to play professionally. So why are you not developing the entire person, the entire child, and helping them appreciate the game of golf as an avenue and developing sound techniques? You're developing athletes. You're developing people. You're not developing a product. You're not developing a mechanism to get where they want to go. It's not an end game. It's a development piece. They see it as especially a lifetime endeavor. So I think it's the way the things have become, especially at the youth end, is only made for burnout. And when I'm working with younger players, you have to look at their goals. You have to look at their ability. You have to look at their support system. You have to look at what's going to be best for the child and the long-term enjoyment of their game. I mean, there's plenty of when I was working with college players, on the college team. This is Division III level. Most of them couldn't wait for it to be over, and they look at me and they said, "Coach, I've been playing competitive golf since I was 7 years old. I cannot wait for this to be over, and I don't think I'll play golf again." And that was half of them. Yeah. And that's Division III level. Yeah. I mean, you look at, and these are all, American kids that have been in a system where, it's all about how many tournaments they could play, what their priority status was, where they were on junior scoreboard, and that no one really cared about them. So, you're looking at international, especially youth development, including national teams, including much different structures as far as development goes, especially at the female side, being the reason why it's so much more dominant. Yeah, they might specialize, especially in the Asian countries. They specialize early. They want to get as much results right away, and then they're usually can be done playing by the time they're 30, but that's their choice. But the other countries, they look at really a development period, and they take it from there. I think what we do is just completely broken.
That's a really interesting thought, Peter, because there is a lot of truth to what you said, and Pete, I want to bring you in on this as well. The reason why I say this, and again, I don't say this as a criticism, and I know that it's just an open discussion, but what I've noticed as well, even though I don't get involved in the junior programs, that I deal in a different market, but I know a lot of coaches that do, and you're exactly right. One of the things that we see happening, and this has really happened with a lot of even the international players coming over here to the United States and training here, is many of them get burned out. Pete, at a very early age. I mean, they're pressured, they're pushed to essentially perform in order to be able to play at a higher level. And don't get me wrong. I think whether you Division 1, 2, 3, collegiately, you want to play your best, you want to get out there. But is there maybe an outlet or a way that we should look at this somewhat differently in how we introduce people to the game? And I guess that's really what I'm asking of here. Nothing wrong if you have aspirations of playing collegiately or beyond. But for the average folk out there that maybe is never going to get to that level or that has no aspirations of getting to that level, just wants to get out there and have some competition but not feel like they're under the gun, so to speak. Pete, what do you think about that? Are we maybe in a situation in our industry at times where we're kind of tightening up the reins a little bit to where we're actually pushing people away in some cases? What do you think?
Well, I agree a lot with what Peter was saying there. It's even looking at the team that I help coach. I mean, how many in the last 5 years that I've been working with the Missouri women's team, we have one that's playing, actually two that are playing professionally. So, it's a very small number. But that program itself does more to develop the team members as students and people along with the golf. So they have the two main coaches do a great job of making sure that they're well-rounded and they're ready for life when they're done versus just playing golf. And so, yeah, I think what we should do overall, that's a big question. So much has been changed in the way that all sports are done. From where it was competitions of wins and losses, and now it's we shouldn't keep score. Nobody, the whole industry has kind of gotten turned upside down, and so yeah, I think there should be more overall development. I think long term, I have several juniors that I've done that with, and I think Peter's exactly right. You got to look at their skill level. You got to look at their support system. You got to look at their goals. What do they want to do? Where do they want to go? And then you have to ask, are they willing to put in the work? But put in the work so you don't, from 7 to 10, you burn them up and then they don't want to play anymore. So, you have to be careful along that run too. And I think too, from an overall scoring, system, I mean, you're looking at, very few sets of tournaments that, coaches are going to look at. I dealt the same thing with volleyball, where you're looking, if you're not going to the national qualifiers, collegiate coaches aren't looking at volleyball players. They don't look at high school matches. They don't even pay attention. That's nothing. I mean, you have to go to the big time, tournaments in order to get recognized. Otherwise, they're not even going to look at you. And so I think to a certain extent, maybe we've gone to where we're trying to push them towards too many big things, too many events, too many tournaments, too much practice. And I see a lot of it to where, these kids are playing time and time and time again. And I just wonder in the back of my head, they're 11, 12, 13. When are they just going to look at the parents and say, I'm done? This is too much. Too much. I played, Legion baseball, 63 games in the summertime. Holy crud, that was too much. That's a lot of baseball. That's why I turned to golf. Yeah, I stopped playing baseball. So I can see that. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I think to go back to John's point, though, I think there has to be really a balance, though. I mean, you don't want to get in a situation where, because obviously if you're playing, competitive golf, and especially at a higher level, there's going to be pressure. You have to be able to handle that pressure. And if you turn it and sort of flip it the opposite way, then you're not going to get as high of a caliber player. But I think it goes to the individual. I think, we have to first see, okay, what is it that they want to do? And if they want to play, see, one of the things that I think is sort of coming to realization, and this is part of the reason why you're seeing a more aggressive programming here in the United States, and why you saw it up in Canada, as Peter mentioned, is I think what the powers that be, if you will, recognized with some of the younger international players is they were being conditioned, as the point was made earlier, out of 100 players, they might see 3 or 4 or 5 that sort of have risen to the top, and that's what they're going to focus on. And they want them to be, they want them to be, nationally recognized and so forth. So there's a lot of pressure put on those individuals. And we don't have that currently right here now. It's the cream rises to the top on their own fruition, not because of pressure, in a national program. And sometimes that might be not necessarily advantageous. So it's a very, tight line that we have to sort of walk on, and we have to decide, okay, do we open up things a little bit differently and make it more accessible to individuals that don't necessarily want to go down that route of college or beyond, and just make it accessible. But at the same time, we don't want to, pull back the reins too much with some of our higher caliber players, because if they're going to compete internationally, they've got to be able to they've got to keep it together and be willing to go through some pressure in order to be competitive, because the truth be known, many of these international players, they're prepared to do that. I mean, we've had some of the ones, through the Symetra on the Women of Golf with Cindy and I, and many of the players, point blank, they work their tails off morning, noon, and night, and that's a priority for them. So it's a tough call, really which way to go. I mean, I think there'd be some advantages of having a national golf team, but there could also be some disadvantages. I think you guys all raised some equally valuable points on both sides of the coin. I look at it this way, as I think overall, I think that we have to find a system that will work and open the door for everybody. I think it's about accessibility, and I think, unfortunately, sometimes some of the avenues that we currently have available are not necessarily available to everybody, even though they can still have that opportunity. It's just not realistic. And that's why I mentioned earlier, in hockey as an example, we had things like house leagues and that were more entry level, and, for those players that maybe didn't have a real high caliber game, but still wanted to get out there and have some fun. So there's a lot of different opportunities, I think, for everybody. But interesting discussion. I think everybody brought some great points to tonight's panel discussion, and I appreciate it very much. And actually had a couple more questions, but they were kind of answered throughout the evening, so I will skip past those. But great discussion, guys. I appreciate it very much. So as always, I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to share with the listeners if they want to reach out to you, and the best way to do that. And we'll go in order again. John, if you want to start off.
Well, first of all, Ted, I want to wish everyone out there, all the listeners, a happy Thanksgiving. And Peter and Pete, I really enjoyed tonight's discussion. And I really think that a lot of great points. And one thing, if you are looking for entry-level stuff, the PGA Junior League is a great way to get your kids started, boy or girl. It's a great way to get them started. But if you want to follow me, I'm working with Golf Tips Magazine, and my Fairways to Heaven feature is out each month with that, or each bi-monthly with that. So I'm real excited about that. And Ted, again, thank you for letting me do that. And if you want to follow me on social media under John Decker Golf Instruction, you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or YouTube. My book, Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game, is sold on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.com. But thanks again.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Peter, go ahead. Best way for the folks if they want to reach out.
Yeah, as always, thanks for having me on, Ted. And again, and like John said, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hope it's happy and safe. And John and Pete, thanks for sharing some time with me. But people like to reach out, they can reach me at NPI Coach on Instagram is my most used. I'm on Facebook as well. My email is peter@gonpi.org. And our website, if you'd like to check out more about Northeast Performance Institute, which has 4, soon to be 5 locations in Connecticut, they can visit our website at gonpi.org. And thanks again, Ted.
I appreciate it. And last but not least, Pete.
Again, thanks, Ted, for having all of us on, and Peter and John, and enjoy the conversation as well. Currently, they can reach me at planesimplegolf.com. That's PLANE for the plane. But starting in 2021, I'm going to be joining forces with St. Louis Golf Lessons. And so I'm just taking a little bit different avenue, but they're still doing the same things. But, Plain Simple Golf for now, and any future contact information will come out of there. So thanks again.
Perfect. Well, guys, everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. And as always, I appreciate you bringing your best to the Coach's Corner panel. And thanks for an interesting discussion tonight. I think hopefully the listeners learned a lot and will help them navigate whatever path or route that they choose to take. And I appreciate your thoughts, guys. Have a safe and happy holiday, and I'll see you next time on the Coach's Corner panel.
Thanks, Ted.
All right. Thanks, guys. All right, that was John Decker, Peter Agazarian, and Pete Buchanan on the Coach's Corner panel. And just a few moments, I'll bring on my guest, Joshua Jacobs from TGA Premier Sports. He's the CEO. But I want to let you in on a really great new product that's just hit the market here just recently called Golf Nicks. For those of you that subscribe to Golf Tips magazine or have picked a copy up in the newsstands, may have seen there was an advertisement for Golf Nicks, and that's GOLFNIX. There was a small half-page advertisement that was in the latest issue that's currently out at newsstands of the Golf Tips magazine. And I'm going to play this short clip and let you learn a little bit more, and then I'll tell you about an exclusive offer just for you.
2020 hasn't been exactly what any of us expected, but the one thing we have in common is the need to cleanse and stay clean. Doctor recommended and approved, Golf Nicks is a hand and skin cleanser that can be used daily. Clean your hands, shoes, clubs, your golf cart, and use it around your home. It leaves no sticky residue and moisturizes your skin. Keep clean and avoid those pesky germs that exist all around us today. Golf Nicks is your natural solution to keep clean. Check it out at golfnix.com. That's golfnix.com.
All right, and as I mentioned, I've got a special promotion for those of you that are interested. It's a great product. The website is golfnix.com, and that's GOLFNIX. And you go on, there's a variety of different packages. There's a hand sanitizer or cleaner, if you will. There's also some product there if you want to, clean your clubs and so on and so forth. But if you go there and at checkout, if you enter the following promo code, you'll get 10% off your entire order. And the promo code is Golf Tips 2021. That's Golf Tips 2021. If you enter that promo code at checkout, you'll receive 10% off your order. It's a great product. What's very unique about this product, there are obviously a lot of hand sanitizers and other sanitized products that have come out. But what's really unique about this is there is no alcohol, it's non-toxic, and it's environmentally safe. So go to golfnix.com, purchase yours today, and again, at checkout, enter promo code GolfTips2021 to receive a 10% discount off your order. All right, as I mentioned, I'm going to be joined here in just a few moments by my very special guest. But before I bring him out, let me also remind everybody that we are live every Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Central here on the blogtalkradio.com network. You can find us by going to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live. And as I said, we're live on Thursday evenings. But for some reason, if you're not able to join us, if you go to that link and scroll down to the on-demand section after each of the episodes, the programs are auto-recorded, so you can listen to the recorded version in its entirety. And if you've missed an episode, you can go back and check out some of the earlier broadcasts as well. You can also find us, for those of you that subscribe to Morning Read. I'm sure you're all familiar with that if you follow golf at all. You'll find both Golf Talk Live and my other podcast, The Women of Golf, which, of course, I co-host with my good friend, LPGA professional Cindy, airs on the Blog Network as well every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern on that network. And that is also available on Morning Read as well under the podcast section. So both Women of Golf and Golf Talk Live you'll find the most recent episodes there. Of course, anywhere great podcasts can be heard. We're also available on those places as well: Spotify, Castbox, and of course in iTunes. We're at the Apple Podcasts section. You can find us in there, and some other places as well. And you'll hear more of that at the end of the program in the outtakes. But anyway, so lots of great places to pick up the show. And just another quick note, as I mentioned earlier at the top of the show, if you're tuning in a little bit later on, next week, being that it's Thanksgiving week, there will be no shows. Either the Women of Golf or Golf Talk Live will not be aired next week. So that's a perfect time, if you're looking for some great golf program to listen to, is to go to blogtalkradio.com, enter in both either Golf Talk Live or Women of Golf, depending on which you want, or both. And you can go to the on-demand sections in both of those categories, and you can listen to some of the earlier broadcasts, including this week. So check it out. Be sure to save it as a favorite. You'll get notification if you follow along. If you go to the main page and you click on add it as a favorite, you'll actually get notifications in your inbox of upcoming shows and that. So it's a great way to do that. But as I said, if you're a subscriber to Morning Read, you can check us out there as well. All right, my very special guest, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, and then as soon as he comes on board, I will bring him on. I'm just waiting for him. But as I mentioned at the top of the show, Joshua Jacobs, the CEO of TGA Premier Sports, he is joining me this evening. He is been doing this for quite some time. It's a franchise business model for introductory and recreational junior golf programs that specializes in after-school, camp, and family programs. TGA is in 32 states, and over 900,000 students have registered for its programs. Joshua's been named by Golf Magazine as one of the top 40 most influential people in golf under 40, and recognized as one of golf's innovators by Golf Inc. He is currently a consultant with the PGA of America, working on the PGA Family Cup Initiative. He graduated from Emory University with a degree in economics and business and a minor in history, and also where he played varsity golf and club tennis. So he specializes in junior golf, and that was why, if you hadn't noticed, why I had some discussion about junior golf in our earlier Coach's Corner panel. So when Joshua comes on, we will bring him on and continue that segment. Also, let me remind everybody, too, about Golf Tips Magazine. If you're not a subscriber, a great way to, if you want to gift a subscription, you can go to golftipsmag.com. That's golftipsmag.com. And under the subscription area, you have an option. You can subscribe as a new subscriber. You can renew. If you're a current subscriber and you're been notified of a renewal, you can actually go and do it right on the site. Or with Christmas just around the corner, or maybe even a birthday, you might want to give that golfer in your family a subscription to the magazine. You can actually gift a subscription. So you can do that right from the site as well. Also, just to add on there, previously all that was available was either a print subscription or a print and digital subscription. But now, for those of you that are a little bit more tech savvy and would just prefer a digital version only, that is now available as well. If you go under subscribe, and you will see under the form there that the digital only version is now available as well. So a little option for everybody. You can get multiple years. You can subscribe for 1 year, or you can get 2-year subscription if you want to save a little extra money as well. So you can get print and digital, or digital only. So it's up to you. But if you're looking to get somebody a great gift, Golf Tips Magazine just might be the ticket. So go to golftipsmag.com. All right, I see Joshua is ready, and I've already introduced him to all of you. So I'm going to bring him on, and we'll start the second half of the show here on Golf Talk Live. Good evening, Joshua. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks so much.
I appreciate it. thank you very much for coming on and joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live.
No, you're very welcome. It's great to be back on, and congrats on all the success with the magazine.
Well, thank you. I was just sharing a little bit of that with the listeners, and I'm really, really excited about it. So let's talk about, first and foremost, and I know this is not in specific order and what we want to talk about, but talk about a little bit of the impact that COVID has had on both junior golf and also on the programs, just to let everybody kind of get an idea of what's been happening there, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Well, I think overall as an industry, COVID has certainly brought increased demand to junior golf. First of all, it's one of, I think, the two sports that are best positioned during COVID, as well as when we're hopefully out of the woods here with COVID. And I think you're starting to see also a little bit more of an emphasis on junior golf at the courses. It can go both ways. On the one hand, you're hearing courses are obviously more busy than ever. But at the same time, there's also more demand and more people are asking to play, get involved, learn. And I think you're seeing a lot of those people being juniors, and so courses are being more inviting. The tee times may be spaced out more, but I think that you're seeing more of a welcoming, open-armed approach to junior golf. As far as we're concerned, TGA. Yeah, we struggled, especially in the spring session, because our bread and butter is that introductory level, the bottom part of the pyramid, where we bring golf into schools and community centers, and we were shut down, so we had to morph pretty quickly and evolve the programs from being at schools and community centers and everywhere other than green grass to green grass facilities, as well as other places in the community that we could run our program. I think that's what makes TGA unique, is that our program is adaptable anywhere. And when it came to summer camps, we saw a huge uptick in our summer camps. Some of our franchises beat their largest summers ever by 50%. So wow. I'm pretty bullish and optimistic about golf now and in the future.
Yeah, I'm as well. We'll talk about some of that uptick a little bit more in a few moments. But so let's go back a little bit to sort of when things first came to mind to you. How did you come up with the idea to create obviously TGA, but particularly in a franchise model? What was the thought process behind that? And it's not just limited to golf, by the way, and we can talk about that as well. You obviously have a lot of other sports as well, tennis, even cheerleading. Now you've sort of expanded flag football and floor hockey and so many other things. So it's not just golf, but obviously we're going to talk a little bit more about golf here. But feel free to include some of the others. But so how did you come up with this idea, and why do you think it was sort of the right timing to do that?
Well, it was back in 2003, and the mantra back then was kids should not be charged to learn golf, and golf should not be learned anywhere else other than green grass facilities, even though every other sport was against the grain in that realm, where every other sport existed at schools, they existed throughout community centers, and so golf wasn't really on the menu of activities. And in 2003, my little sister was picking after-school programs at a school in LA, and there was no golf. There was almost every other sport, but there was no golf. And my mom was the head of the PTA and said, hey, what do you think about, trying to bring golf to the school? And the next thing you know, we were in 25, then 50 schools in the LA area, and we were running green grass facility camps and family programs. And we started getting calls from around the country. We were getting calls from PGA professionals, LPGA professionals, and entrepreneurs who were saying, hey, how are you doing this? and what is the impact on the industry? What can be the impact on green grass? What can be the impact on my revenues? What can I make doing this? And I think in a lot of ways in business, you got to be in the right place at the right time. And we were very fortunate in the sense that we were just very fortunate that it had not come around yet. And we evolved our curriculum from a single level to a multiple level to adding in education components and character development and life lessons. And we were the first group to add STEAM. And my mentors pretty much said, hey, look, I think you've got something here because it's not being done really anywhere, and people are calling you up asking for it, so this is kind of screaming for a franchise opportunity. And just as you had mentioned, we did morph into other sports. We franchised first golf in 2007, and then we did tennis in 2012, and we've added team sports in 2017, but golf and tennis still remain 96% of the business. The model is truly special and unique for individualistic sports. So the team sports were more to complement, but golf has always been the catalyst. It's been the passion, and that's really where our heart lies.
Yeah, let me just for the listeners just kind of give them a little bit of the numbers if you don't mind. So the TGA franchises can literally be found in more than 77 markets across 32 states, as well as internationally in Canada, as you mentioned. And its continued growth has impacted more, as I mentioned before you came on, more than 900,000 youth, and made these sports available to 1.75 million families through its education-based programs, and of course the TJ Sports Foundation, which provides access for all children and promotes the physical, educational, social, and character-building elements of these sports. And you guys are on target, as I understand, to register its 1 millionth student by 2021. Would that be pretty accurate?
we were actually on pace to do it this fall. And COVID unfortunately intervened, so we've pretty much had to push that back almost 9 months. So we think we'll probably get it at the end of the next summer, but that's the way the ball bounces, right? Yeah, and obviously, we'll talk about in a moment some, as you started out earlier about some of the uptick that golf has seen. But I want to ask you, because what's really interesting about this is, most people understand what a franchise is, but maybe explain a little bit about how the model works for somebody that's interested in a TGA franchise. How does it work for the owner, and how do they, what do they do, and how are they bringing golf to the kids? So the model works, and we've created a turnkey business solution to bring golf into public and private schools, mainly elementary, some pre-K, some middle school, but really our sweet spot is that elementary age. So we provide all the tools, all the support, sales, marketing, HR, and admin to programs, partner with those locations, execute the programs, market them to the base, market them within the school. We've got an entire back-end CRM, CMS system to communicate with the customers. And then from there, you are looking for partnerships within your community at local golf courses to run more recreational programs, camps, clinics, maybe some leagues, some family events, because obviously once you get a kid involved in the sport, a junior golfer, it certainly opens up the door for you to communicate with their parents, with the adults. So during this time, families are looking for activities to do together, and the adults certainly want to spend time with the children. So we're seeing more and more of those programs. But it runs the gamut, everything from training coaches to hiring them, onboarding them, retaining them, to the curriculums. Everything is basically there for you. What I like to say is, we're going to build the house, we're going to put up the walls, but ultimately you're going to decorate the walls. with your personality, with what your hopes and dreams are, with running your own business and being your own boss and caring about golf in your community. So it's flexible, and how we're bringing golf to the kids, it's accessible. It's breaking down barriers of entry into the sport. It's breaking down the transportation barrier. It's getting clubs in these kids' hands. It's creating the passion, whether it's for the kids or the entire family. And, that to me is what the golf industry has always struggled with. It's always struggled with customer acquisition. Golf does an amazing job at retaining their customers. And COVID actually, I think, has helped with the customer acquisition challenge that the golf industry has faced. So for us, we're kind of solving that and bringing it to the kids by literally bringing programs to where the kids are.
Yeah, and that's important because, I just want to touch on real quickly here, since you had mentioned it, and again, one of the things with golf, we've been very, very blessed, and I've said this probably 100 times now over the last several weeks, but golf has really received what I would call a booster shot in the arm as a result of COVID, and I certainly don't want to take away from some of the struggles and the tragedies, of course, that many people have been feeling out there over these last several months. But golf, again, has that sort of built-in social distancing, if you will. And many courses, many instructors have seen, a substantial uptick in their lesson, tee performance, and courses have seen a flood to it. So it's very, very good. It's going to be interesting to see what the industry or how they react as COVID sort of gets dealt with and moves, hopefully very quickly away. It's going to be interesting to see what happens then. All of these new people that have come in, are they going to stick around, or are they, going to go back to something else? And this was just something because they had nothing better to do. So it's going to be interesting to see how they react. So what I want to ask you is this, Joshua, with respect to that. You obviously have developed some very key components in being able to create some successful junior programs. You've had a crop of new ones, if you will, that have come to the game, through COVID and just wanting to be able to get out, parents wanting to, get access as well. So what is some of the successful key components to your junior program that have helped to make you guys so successful?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's our franchise owners. They're the boots on the ground. They're the ones stewarding the brand. They're the one who's driving golf, the brand of golf in the community, and creating the new customers. And they all share very similar traits, and that is a little bit of what I mentioned before. They care about golf. Number one, it's their passion. They care about their community. They're self-starters. And they recognize the demand that's there and the uniqueness of what we're doing. So when you put all that stuff together with what we've created in terms of resources, I think that we've got a winning combination. You hit on something before that I wanted to touch upon, and you're 100% correct. Golf's had a huge shot in the arm in terms of supply, and what are we going to do to sustain that? It's a big question that everyone's talking about, and knock on wood, the vaccines will do their job, and we'll learn more about this virus, and we'll come through as a society, which I believe. But it's not the disposable income, the time that people have, the flexibility. Will it still be the same? I think that there's going to be an increase from where it was pre-COVID, but I don't know if it's going to be at the levels that it is now. I think it comes down to three elements to sustain the supply, and that is communication, value proposition, and innovation. If we can find a way to consistently communicate with the new golfers and keep them engaged with the sport, I believe that we have a really good chance at sustaining them. Value proposition, that's across the board. Whatever the new golfers are looking at, whether it's equipment or the tee times they're purchasing, the lessons they're purchasing, if they continue to see a high value proposition, then they're going to stick with it because they're vested right now. They by starting to play or play more, they're becoming more vested.
Mm-hmm.
All of us as avid golfers know that. And then the last one is innovation. Innovation, I think, especially for that elusive 25 to 45-year-old age group in the sport. If we can innovate and come up with products that can continue to captivate and engage that age group, I think that we're going to be in really good shape.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's really going to be the key. We all love traditional golf. We all love getting out there and whether walking or driving in the golf cart. But the younger generations coming up, and even up to, as you suggest, up to 45, they're also looking for something different. We had the introduction a few years ago with Topgolf, which was a big hit with especially the younger generation. It certainly is not in par with your traditional golf at this point, but I know that they're Callaway now, of course, has jumped on board, and they've got some big plans, and that's going to be interesting to see what happens moving forward. But they recognized that golf is also an entertainment opportunity as well, and there are others out there as well that are doing different things. But yeah, we have to be, I think, more creative, because one of the concerns that I have, and this happens unfortunately with so many businesses or industries, let's say, that they become complacent, and where opportunity spikes, as you will, during this COVID, where golf has seen a substantial rise in play. But when things kind of, peter off a little bit, are we going to be in a position to engage these people even further, or are we just going to, sort of rest on our laurels? So there's a lot of questions a lot of people are asking right now is how do we sustain this development? We don't suddenly go out rushing and building 100 new golf courses that ultimately may end up getting closed down. So we have to be very careful, I think, in how we approach this. So one of the things that I really like about what you do, Joshua, is this. Earlier on my program, I had a panel discussion. We talked about junior golf. And, one of the things that I really like about what you're doing is you're making it accessible for everybody, whether you're a high-caliber junior player or, somebody that just wants to kind of start out. It's accessible to everybody and at a very entry level. And where they choose to take it from there is really up to them. So as you see, your franchise model developing and growing, there's also going to be challenges as well to keep that fresh and innovative and new. What are some of the challenges, do you think, and what are some of the other opportunities for junior golf that you're able to do through your program?
A good question. I think for us, the challenge that we're going to have is the bureaucracies moving forward in safety and COVID. We very much like what you said about golf was already, I don't want to say it was already kind of COVID proof with social distancing. Our programs were very similar. Our curriculum is station-based learning that, helps teach kids how to self-regulate. And we had our curriculums were already set up for COVID. And so we were able to translate that curriculum no matter where we had to go to. The challenge for junior golf as a whole is going to be creating a seamless player pathway. There are really three parts to the pyramid for any golfer, but especially with junior golf as these kids are starting, and that's introductory, recreational, and competitive. And obviously the introductory programs are the base of the pyramid. That's the customer acquisition, and from there you're building passion, you're making it fun, and you're getting these kids and their families to that next step, which is recreational. And recreational, predominantly in my opinion, takes place at golf courses. And the challenge that we're going to have there is, it's simple supply and demand, and it's going to be, from a junior golf perspective, these golf courses, they're bottom line oriented. And so
right.
I think that there's larger dollar signs that people see. Oftentimes our industry tends to be a little bit, in humbly, short-sighted rather than long-term vision. And
right.
well, no, I mean, we could certainly cite some examples, but it's so we've got the owners or the management companies who are looking at that, and the big opportunity that we have, in my opinion, because once you get to the golf course, it's really about the PGA and LPGA professionals. They're the gatekeepers, and right now, for the most part, they're viewed as being very transactional as it relates to the golf course. And we need to get them to be more value-driven and the expert guides once the consumers get to the golf course. They need to connect with the whys that people have, whether they're juniors or whether they're adults. And I think it's heading to that direction, which is fantastic. But in doing so, I think that's going to really open up the door for more junior golfers at the recreational level. And from there, I mean, the pros already have the training and the wherewithal to develop a junior's game. So from there, you're going to be creating that funnel of golfers to the top of the pyramid, which is competitive. And if those three parts of the pyramid can work seamlessly, then I think everybody wins.
Yeah, and you raised some really interesting points, too, and I agree with you, as far as the industry is concerned. I mean, they're looking at the bottom line. When you're dealing with some of the golf courses, they're looking at what it's costing them to keep the operation going. And, I'll give you a good example. I won't get into specific names, but there was an area in South Florida that had a very successful first tee program, which is, has for the most part been pretty successful over the years. But one of the concerns that they were having was accessibility to golf courses. A lot of the golf courses in their particular area, and again, I'm not going to name it, presented them a challenge. They didn't want to accommodate the first tee program. Not that they didn't support it, but again, it was conflicting with members and, times and so forth and that. So they had to kind of hop around from course to course. So there was never any consistency. One of the things that I've really thought about, and I go back to my own childhood, just to give you an idea, I'm 56, so that gives you an idea. I go back a few years. But when I was growing up and learning this game, I played on what we refer to is either an executive or a par 3 course. I think what I would like to see is for the industry to be a little more aggressive in that area instead of building, not that I don't love these great, beautiful golf courses, but I would like to see more par 3 or executive style courses being made for a couple of reasons. First off, the overhead is considerably lower. And most golfers, even older golfers, when they're first starting out, they can't play a 6,500 or a 7,500 yard course. It's not going to happen. They just don't have the skill level. So, I was taught on a par 3 course. That's where I learned, got my golfing chops, if you were, and then I grew into something a little bit larger. What do you think about something like that? Do you see that as maybe being a way, particularly from the junior golf standpoint, if there was more of that product available? I know there are lots around, but not as many as there used to be. What do you think about having that more, shorter par 3 or executive style courses available for programs such as yours and even others?
Well, I think it's a great point. I certainly echo your sentiment. I did the same thing to enter the game. I I grew up in Los Angeles, and I would take a bus from a bus down Ventura Avenue to go play a par 3 course that had a driving range and a putting green out front. The course was called Weddington Golf and Tennis. Unfortunately, it looks like they're going to shut the course down, but that's a whole nother ballgame. No, you're 100% correct, and you're starting to see there's a great company out there, Operation 36, in the junior golf space.
Yep.
Well, it's actually in more of the introductory space, but I think that they're trying to cater more towards juniors. It's kind of the same premise. For us, our most successful programs are run at par 3 or executive courses. And on top of that, if I could take it a step further, you're starting to see more initiatives that are turning golf courses into the type of courses that you're talking about. So, for example, PGA, the new PGA initiative, PGA Family Cup, these are events that families can participate, multi-generations of families can play together. And the premise behind them, whether an event or a series, is it's basically a par 3 setup for 9 holes. And that is ideal for all levels to play together, or for introductory programs to play together. So I could not echo what you're saying more. It's needed. I don't know the ins and the outs of creating more of those courses, but I do know that you can turn courses into the executive or par 3 type atmosphere that you're looking for.
Yeah, and the reason why I say that, Joshua, is because, obviously I grew up in that environment when I was first learning the game. But, I look at so many courses, and this is pre-COVID, that have struggled over the last several years. One of the, models, if you will, that has not been as successful, and for a number of reasons, management is one, but also is community golf courses. And I don't mean public golf courses, but, they throw up a community somewhere and we're going to add as one of the amenities a golf course. Well, that was successful for a while, but that model's not as successful. And that's some of the courses that have shut down quite a bit over the years. And because they're very expensive to maintain, they're resort-style type courses with a community around it, but not everybody's playing golf. And, the memberships dwindle and so on and so forth. And, not all of them were as accessible to the public. And I just look at it this way. It's a big overhead. It's a big burden to that community. And they're not really, capitalizing on it. And this happens, I especially see in Florida, where a lot of these communities have these golf courses. They're not being fully utilized any longer, and but yet are unwilling to let the public in there for obvious reasons. It's some cases it's a gated community, but so I would like to see more. As I said, those executive or par 3 courses kind of popping up, around the nation. Not just for the juniors, but as you pointed out, for families. I mean, what a great way to get exposed to the game together as a family. Time is also another issue as well. We see a lot of, people are kind of tapped in their time, and they can't afford to play 4.5 or 5 or in some cases even 6-hour rounds of golf. So that would help alleviate some of the slow play, I would think, as well. So what do you see, if any, changes to your programming and to your model as we move forward in both during COVID and in the future? How do you see, what changes do you see happening with TGA?
I see us being a little less reliant on schools and community centers, and I see us looking to engage the community more and looking for other spaces that we can execute our programs, because they're, as I mentioned, the curriculum is already COVID-proof, basically. So it's just a matter of finding space. We know the demand is there based on our conversation thus far. I think everybody knows the demand for golf is through the roof right now, and the supply is increasing as well.
Right.
So I think for us it's going to be adapting and staying patient, because the schools and the community centers will certainly come back, but it's a matter of being patient and learning from our customers what they're looking for and where they would like us to execute programs, because they're calling us to do so. It's a matter of adapting it to each community, and every community is different depending on the location around the country. So if our franchise owners are going to be proactive and they're going to reach out to their customers, they're going to learn these things, and they're going to be able to execute, and that's going to continue our ability to transition these students and these families to the golf course. You're 100% correct in what you said before. The selling of golf, the selling of the golf brand is different than it was, in my opinion, before COVID. It's just a different sell to the people who are interested in it. And you could talk about the NGF and the latent demand for golf that we had. I wonder where it will be come next year with all the increased supply. But the sell is different. The value proposition is different. Like you said, the time that is spent playing golf is different. The who plays with you is different. It's becoming more family oriented, especially around the private club sector. So if we can tailor our message to various utilizing the new value propositions, I think the industry is going to be very successful.
Yeah, I think it's a matter, I think like many industries, and golf, certainly is no different. I think it's a matter of adapting to an ever-changing global climate. And I don't mean that in the literal sense of climate, but, you have to be willing to adapt to change. One of the things that has been, as I just touched on a few moments ago, and you've mentioned as well, is slow play and time factor. People's lives, and let's remove COVID for a second because I know that has changed a lot. But, pre-COVID, people were busy. Some people were holding down a couple of jobs. Some people had, careers that took them away. We used to jokingly in golf years ago, Wednesdays, don't bother going and playing on Wednesdays because that's when all the doctors would play. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. They're busy now. So they're not getting out as frequently. So people are more, conscious of their time and unwilling to spend 4 to 6 hours out on a golf course. So they're looking for other options. And this is something that the industry has to make adjustments and change with it. That doesn't mean that we're going to get rid of, the 18-hole golf courses entirely, or, we're going to shut down all of the private member facilities and so forth, or get rid of all of our resorts. But it just means we have to expand and add additional products and or services within golf that fits other needs than what typically or traditionally has been in golf. And I see what you're doing is you're opening up an area of golf that, in my opinion, really needed to happen probably even sooner than when you came on board. But I'm grateful that you're here now, over this last, decade or so. Where are you looking to expand? You're obviously here in the United States into 32 states and have multiple programs. You've also in Canada as well. Are you internationally overseas at this point, or is this something that you're working towards? Where's the status as far as that's concerned?
We're certainly looking to expand internationally, but we have a ton of opportunity for growth within the States, especially in the Midwest. That's really an area that we are queuing in on more in the coming years to expand on. So for us, we're very strong on the coast. There's still a lot of opportunity if people are interested in franchises on the coast. But if you look at a map, we're very strong on the coast, and then down in the in the Southwest and Southeast. So our franchises kind of make a U around the U.S. But there's a lot of space that's open even within that U. But where we're looking to expand more is in the Midwest, and we're positioned very well for that because we've created our programs to be done indoors or outdoors. So it really doesn't matter what the weather is like during the winter months. We can bring the program indoors. So it's certainly a lot of opportunity for us moving forward.
Well, and I look at it this way, being someone who's played hockey, if my parents could drive me to hockey games and other winter sports, they can certainly get them to one of your programs, even during some of the most cold days and wintry days. So having the fact that you're able to have an indoor facility as well and run your program successfully. Let me ask you, Joshua, as you look back to when you first started this to where you are now, what has surprised you the most?
That's a tough question. What surprised me the most is the interest in. I think it's more of the uniqueness in what we're doing. It's the eye-opening that people will do when they hear, "Wait, you're bringing golf to schools? How are you doing that?" And that's always been that's always been our repertoire. It's funny. I have an article that's printed out on my desk, and it's the title is "Mocked and Misunderstood," and it's kind of the premise behind it is if people are mocking what you're doing or they don't quite understand it, then you're on to something. And for us, that really tells the story of the last 15 years. At first it was, well, you can't teach golf outside of green grass. And then it was, well, wait a second here. How are you in 75 schools outside of Detroit and partnering with 5 golf courses and selling out camps week in and week out? For me, that would be my answer.
Well, I think it's it's like any I hear you. It's really like with any business and venture. When you first start out, you're uncertain where things are going to go, how well it's going to be received. And I look back to when you first had come on the show, and in the earlier stages, there's always a certain amount, and I don't care how successful the programs are, there's always a little bit of angst. Okay, well, is it going to flourish and develop as the way that I've envisioned it to do it? And obviously the short answer is yes. And proof of that is, with the numbers that you're talking about. Here you are, on the precipice of hitting a million, juniors and, nearly 2 million families that have been impacted thus far. And, it's growing and growing. And you've touched into so many communities, and you're right. There is so much growth potential here in the U.S. alone, without really going anywhere else, that you still have to cover. So there's substantial, room for growth here. And I think it's go ahead.
Those numbers are all because of our team at HQ and our franchises. As I said before, it's their passion for what they're doing and their drive to impact these communities through golf. And the reason why I like the franchise model is because we are, as franchisor and franchisee, we are all in this together. I say that often in the confines of our company, and what I love about it is everybody's vested to grow the sport. When you buy a franchise, you're certainly a passion play. certainly it can be monetary, but for us it's a low cost investment. We're not brick and mortar. The average franchise fee is only about $20,000, and it's a passion play and it's a lifestyle. And these wonderful people are putting golf on the menu of activities for kids and the menu of sports for kids at these young ages. And that's really wonderful because, as we all know, when we live and breathe it, the lifelong sport of golf provides immense benefits no matter what age you're at. And I simply love the fact that the better that our franchises do, the better the industry does. And that's the key for me and where I sit, in a very small piece of a very big pie.
For a franchise or for somebody that's out there that's listening to the program tonight, that's interested in maybe becoming a franchisee, what do they need to know, and what is it specifically that you're looking for in a franchisee?
Well, I've listed the traits of what we're looking for. They've got to be passionate about golf, about sports, about their community, about kids, self-starters, and what we provide pretty much takes care of the rest. So it's really a wonderful group to be a part of, and it's growing, which is fantastic, even during this time. So for me, we've seen all walks of life take on a franchise. We've seen gentlemen and ladies in their 50s and 60s. We've had I call them kids come straight out of college whose parents want them to do this, and certainly they're interested in it as well, and the parents help them get their starts. We have people who take early retirement to do it. We have corporate executives who are starting a second career with this. It really runs the gamut, and it's a wonderful group of people who come together with really one purpose. And yeah, certain people do better than others, but in the end, we're all in it for the kids in the community, and that's the opportunity to change a child's life, especially through lifelong sports, it's a wonderful opportunity. And I don't say that lightly, because there's a lot of pressure on our franchises. I mean, if you think about it, if we're going to be the first touch point to the sport, especially to golf, if that child's experience is negative, we have the potential to turn off that individual for quite some time. And so, I mean, luckily we don't have that very often, especially with what we've created. But it's, there's a lot of responsibility there for our franchises at Relatree, and I think that they relish that opportunity, and they deliver.
It's interesting because, just to go to your point, is you're exactly right. First impressions are everything. And so it does put, obviously, a lot of pressure on your organization to be able to create a product, if you will, that leaves a lasting impression, and obviously a positive one. So it's very important that, obviously, you get that right. Now, you've decided at some point, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, obviously golf is sort of in the forefront, and tennis, is a close follow-up. But you've expanded into other areas. Why not just stick with golf and maybe tennis? Why expand into other sports? What was it that was your thinking there that, hey, this is a good model, I think we can get this into other areas as well? Was it just more or less to give a bigger variety? What was the thinking?
Well, we saw an opportunity because there were some some sports that were not being offered in the schools and community centers that we were servicing, sports that were popular in those areas. And so we thought we would expand there. And it's, to be very forthright, it has not been as successful as golf and tennis for a number of reasons. And we've such pulled back a little bit in that realm. But we saw an opportunity, and I think the key was nobody was really teaching those sports at an introductory level with academics. And our whole program has the ability to infuse academics like STEAM, history, English into our programs. I mean, we have a 60-page student handbook for each sport that we do that the kids get. And there were some challenges certainly with the schools not wanting us to have that many programs, even though they were unique. And so our franchises, and rightfully so, they wanted to stick with golf or tennis, whichever ones that they had at the time. So it was a great learning experience. Hey, if you don't try, you never get anywhere. And I can tell you that myself and everybody else who's ever been in my position, you're going to fail more than you're going to succeed. And I wouldn't call it a failure by any means, but it certainly has not been as successful as the individualistic sports that we run.
Yeah, it's you're right. Everything's a trial and error, and I think it's an opportunity to open other doors, and obviously those that ultimately become less successful, then they can be phased out and that. And I think golf and tennis typically I think have always kind of been in the forefront in a lot of programming and so forth. So I mean they're obviously where you want to start, and then anything that sort of comes out as a result of that afterwards is obviously a bonus, and who knows what could develop through that. But it as I've said to you before, and I'll say it again, I think what you're doing is fantastic. I think you've got a great business model, and I think you're doing something that I've said myself has been long overdue. I think the earlier we introduce golf to the younger generation, the more likely they're going to be inclined to want to continue to play it. Every other sport virtually is introduced at a very, very early age, at the elementary age. Golf is one of those games that really is not for most people. And so, by the time you hit 12, 13, 14 years old, if you haven't been introduced like I was very fortunate. My parents introduced it to me. But for a lot of kids, it's not the case. So there's a missed opportunity, if you will. So you're really creating a huge void for the industry by doing what you're doing. Having said that,
I hope I'm not. I hope I'm not creating a void. Hopefully, I'm solving the void. But
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
okay.
My apologies.
No, I heard you. I heard. No, I hear exactly what you're saying, and the introductory level, and those first touch points. There's been a lot of programs that have come and gone, and I think the reason why we've been successful for so long is because we've created a model that is scalable and replicable. And you see some other junior golf initiatives out there that they've had ups and downs. It's especially on the introductory side. You have to have the business side of it is just as important as the curriculum. It's even, in my opinion, it's even more important to have a business model, no matter whether you're for-profit, non-profit, whatever it is. And we have a non-profit foundation arm to go with our program, so we have the ability to service the entire community that we're in. It's not just pay-for-play programs. But if you don't have a business model and a delivery system that's scalable and replicable, you're going to be dead in the water. So we've been fortunate enough to be able to morph that over time and to evolve it. So, whether it's technology, curriculum, it really has run the gamut for us. We've been able to innovate, and hopefully we'll be here for a long time to come.
Well, and I think what really is happening is, and this is what the problem has been in the past with so many organizations, is that they've typically been, I think, very narrow focused. It's always been, there's obviously a lot of great junior programs out there, but they've kind of been feeders into a more highly competitive programming that is available. And that's not to say that somebody that may be, involved with TGA at some point may have aspirations of taking golf a little bit further. But when you limit to a program that's simply, okay, let's play competitive golf, let's get out there, let's, develop and so on and so forth, after a while it's not sustainable because it's not really inclusive, it's more exclusive. And I think what you're doing is something that's created that's inclusive. So, you might have 100 kids that come through, maybe 3, 4, maybe more, may want to develop into a more serious golfing career down the road, which is great. But you're introducing it to a lot of people that may just want to go out sometime and just play recreational. It may be just introductory, as you said, but it's exposing them to a game that obviously we both enjoy, but without putting the added pressure of saying, well, if you're going to get into this program, you've got to do this, this, and this. So it really gives them the option of where they want to take it beyond, your programming and that. And I think it's a great model. Which brings me to this point is... Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say,
no, go ahead.
What you mentioned is spot on, and that is that there are a lot of organizations who have been around a long time who do great work in various parts of that player pathway, whether it's introductory, recreational, and competitive. Obviously at the highest point for junior golf, you have, the TGA, the junior tour, where that's where college scholarships are born. That's if you get there, you've accomplished something. Same thing goes for the other competitive tours that are wonderful out there. The Future Champions Tour. Chris Smeal runs a great tour here out of Southern California. Certainly, the other competition that comes to mind is drive, chip, and putt. That Augusta spearheads with the PGA, LPGA, USGA. PGA Junior League is wonderful as well. They run the gamut for league play for both recreational as well as competitive pathways. And you see more and more of those that are establishing themselves. And that's when you talk about we need to have a seamless pathway. We need to get that information in parents' hands so that they know that there's a place to go. And for me, myself, I'm actually launching another company soon. It's going to be called College Golf Experience, and it's going to be a series of very high-level camps with college coaches who instruct them. So we're going to be partnering with various coaches and various institutions to bring, for kids who are 10 to 18 who are aspiring to play collegiate golf. We're going to be creating transformational experiences for them at various institutions. So there's a lot of opportunity across the board with golf, with junior golf. The key is going to be communication and education, as we talked about earlier in the hour.
Right. Yeah, and you're exactly right. And I think that is fantastic. And I'm excited to hear that you're expanding into another area that I think would be obviously beneficial to that age group particularly. let's let the folks know if they're interested in learning more about the program, but also perhaps a franchise opportunity. What's the best way to reach out and get in touch?
The information is at playtga.com for people who are interested in getting their kids involved in programs. And then if you're interested in a franchise, it's franchisetga.com. If we have a few minutes, I wanted to expand on something you said about South Florida. It's interesting that you mentioned that. So I grew up in Los Angeles, but I would fly to Lake Worth, Florida, just outside of West Palm Beach, every holiday break. And my grandparents lived on 54 holes in a development called the Fountains, which
mm-hmm.
You had alluded to earlier. There are these developments and they had golf courses inside of them. And I came across an article. I haven't been there in a decade, and I came across an article in the Wall Street Journal, and it was talking about the Fountains and how their golf membership was dwindling, and they ended up getting rid of one of the courses. It happened to be my favorite. It was the North Course, and they were developing real estate. And I think I think you're spot on in the sense. Obviously, it's very nostalgic to talk about and to read about, but you're spot on in the sense that golf is as our populations increase exponentially, golf is going to be looked at, the courses are going to have to be able to monetize themselves to show their value. And that's going to go all the way down to how people feel about it, how they're treated when they're there, what opportunities there are to play and to learn, and different age groups. And so if we can maximize that, I think golf will have a fantastic ability to sustain and thrive here in the post-COVID future.
Well, and I think that, it's a different mindset too. Years ago, that country club mindset was something that, was more apparent. Nowadays, again, you've got a different generation coming up that, is interested in exploring other opportunities. So, again, they've had to adapt as well. I know, originally being from Canada, I know up in the Toronto area a few decades ago, some of the most exclusive clubs outside of Toronto had to change their business model because, again, hate to say it, but people pass on and, memberships sort of dwindle and the next generation coming up, we're not as interested in having those memberships. So, they've got to change the way that they approach things. And we have to, as I said earlier, we have to, as an industry, we have to keep developing and changing. That doesn't mean we, get rid of what, we've had before, but it just means we have to adapt to an ever-changing market because otherwise, over the last several years, we've seen a lot of courses go under for that very reason, is because they were unwilling to adapt and change and make modifications. And, it's a changing global economy and everybody is viewing things a lot differently than what they once did. So you have to be, you have to be willing to look at, how we can change and grow this game. And then when we do get opportunities like what we're experiencing now with COVID, we have to find ways of, okay, now we've got them here. What do we do to keep them here? What do we do to keep them interested? And unfortunately, it may be something different than what we've done in the past. So these are conversations, as you said earlier, that we have to continue to have, and we have to be willing to reach out to our communities more and say, what is it that you want? It's not so much about always what we want. It's, within the industry, it's what do you want? What does the consumer want? How can we better appease their needs and their interests? So I think we'll have to end it on that note because we're running out of time. But Joshua, as always, I want to thank you. And as you develop your other venture with the collegiate side of things, I'd like to, invite you to come back on and we'll talk about that as that becomes more apparent. And I have a few things, I won't get into it now, that I think you might be interested in as well with respect to TGA, and I will I will reach out accordingly, and that we can have another conversation off air at some point in the near future. But Josh, I want to thank you very much for joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live. It's a pleasure as always, and I want to wish you much continued success. And I'm glad to help out and spread the word for your organization, because I think it's a great one. And thanks for doing what you do.
Thank you so much, Ted. Be well, okay? Happy holidays to you and your family.
You too. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you. All right, that was Joshua Jacobs, the CEO of TGA Premier Junior Golf. I want to thank him, and also the guys off the Coach's Corner panel, John Decker, Peter Agazarian, and Pete Buchanan. Thanks, guys, for doing a great job on the panel. As I mentioned earlier, there will be no shows next week. Both of the shows will not air next week, as we'll be observing the Thanksgiving holiday, but we'll return the first week of December. So God bless everybody. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next time right here on Golf Talk Live. Thanks for listening to this evening's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. Remember to tune in each week at blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live. If you can't join us live, check out the on-demand section for previously aired broadcasts, or listen on any of the following social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course, Spotify. To get updates on future shows and upcoming guests, be sure to visit the show's Facebook page, Golf Talk Live Blog. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO. Remember to join me live each week for another great broadcast of Golf Talk Live. See you next time. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.